a hierarchy as long as they have somebody to step on underneath them. As long as, they don't have to replace the top, they don't have to break the wheel, but they try to get as close as possible to the center while they're actively stepping on. It's kind of like when you have like a narcissistic family. What's called? Yeah, you have the golden child who's the favorite child. That's the model minority. You have the middle child, and then you have the invisible child. Sorry, and then you have the scapegoat. Black people are the scapegoat. Okay, everybody gets abused, right, by the narcissistic parent to differing degrees, but the one that bears the brunt of it all is Black people. Right? They're the scapegoat. Everybody in the family knows this. Everybody in the family tries to continue upholding this family system with Black people being the scapegoat. Why? Because nobody wants to be the scapegoat. Nobody wants to replace Black people, right? So, long story short, I think Black and brown unity is 100% possible as long as people address anti-Black racism and don't want to reproduce it.
Let me ask you a question, fam. I actually saw this from a comment. I want to get your perspective because I know you're close to this. And the comment said that all of the conversations about Somalians, and I'm assuming the conversations are about what's happening in Minneapolis with ICE going into Somalian neighborhoods. And all of those conversations are being opened by Black Americans. And so do you think, and so to my broader question, do you think that there should be more of a focus on Black unity first before we entertain the discussions of Black and brown unity? Or do you think we can entertain the discussions of Black and brown unity now? What do you think?
Okay, first of all, I wanted to address this. There has been an active hate campaign against Somalis, okay? This is something that is so disgusting. The amount of hate that I have seen Somalis get when an overwhelming majority of Somalis are literally just minding their own business. They're living their lives. They're contributing to society. They don't bother anybody. And actively, I have seen live after live, comment after comment, literally hating on Somalis. And I personally think that's disgusting, right? I say I am Afro-German 100%, and I'm of Eritrean descent, right? I'm Eritrean. And Somalis literally have been Pan-African from the get-go. The way that Somalis have actively helped so many African countries, and not only African countries, Somalis literally were giving like food to the Gulf Arab countries. They were literally giving cattle for free. Nobody talks about this though. Nobody talks about all the effort that Somali people, but also Somalia as a whole, have literally invested in other countries in order to combat imperialism, in order to make people stable, right? So to me, it's very, very disturbing the amount of anti-Somali hatred that I have been seeing. So I do believe 100% that we also do need to be addressing Black diasporan wars, the issue between diasporan Black people and African Black people. We need to address xenophobia. We need to address the fact that a lot of time when we talk about oppression, we unfortunately talk about it, Black oppression, we talk about it from a Western-centric perspective, and we don't address how this has been affecting the global South, right? So I 100% agree with what you're saying. I think we can walk and chew gum, though. We can address unity amongst Black and African communities while at the same time addressing Black and brown unity. But Black and brown unity mostly cannot come only from us. It has to come from brown people. It has to come from people who are not at the bottom of the hierarchy, which unfortunately Black people are at the bottom of the hierarchy, right? So I want to take the time to address this anti-Somali hate campaign, by the way, because to me it's incredibly unfair to be targeting Somali people, especially right now when there's also an active attempt not only to target the Somali diaspora, but also to destabilize Somalia as well as a country.
Can I say something, Colby?
Yeah, real quick, and then I want to go to East LA. But yeah, real quick, go ahead.
the question in the chat that you're talking to or you're responding to,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important because I think most people, like most African American people, we don't even know what's going on at all. Like I do because I'm on TikTok. But before TikTok, I didn't know about the Somali issue. I didn't know about the Palestinian. I didn't know that we were fighting each other. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm like we're in an echo chamber because we talk. But if I
Mm-hmm.
right now ask somebody, so what do you think about what's going on with the Somalia? I'm just finding this out just now too. They would be like, who? So I think we have to be better at educating people on what is going on. I mentioned about Palestine to one of my sorors, and she's like, "Well, that don't have nothing to do with me." She don't know nothing about it, and we have to understand we have been into propaganda for years, decades. So I think the larger question is how can we get the message out that people in Somalia are being. I don't know what's going on in there. I'm gonna check that out. It seems like to me that we need to come together as a community first because
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I've heard from I think they're called the FBA. I I'm married to a Ghanaian. And
Mm-hmm.
so the stuff that they said about African people,
Mm. I, y'all, y'all got me messed up in these comments. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Let me go to East LA. East LA. Huda, thank you. No problem, fam. What are your thoughts on Black and Brown unity? Why has it been so difficult to achieve? And then we'll go to OD and get her perspective. What do you think, East LA?
Well, with all due respect, I can only speak with any degree of experience on one side. I'm brown.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see by the flag I fly, I've lived like 45, 50 years of my entire life in one way or another in East LA. I'm vastly familiar with the area. It's a part of my life. It's a part of my culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite simple. There are two coins. There's two sides of the coin. The one side is the people who work passionately hard to support their families. They endure situations that most Americans refuse to endure. Most Americans literally will not work the way they do in the conditions that they do. My father literally had a job where he had to dip his hands into acid and deal with that every day when he came home. Okay, but he kept that job until he could find a better one. Okay, this is what Mexicans do. But on the other hand, we're inherently violent. We're tribal. We gang up. Everywhere we go, we gang up. And those who surround us, quite frankly, they leave because they do not want to be part of that environment. When I go running at night, right, I'd go out for my road work at night, right, I would literally see people getting jumped into gangs. I would literally see violence all around me. I'd be attacked myself sometimes. Okay, we have to realize that if we're going to create conflict, we have to realize that conflict is going to be cast upon us, right? There was a
excuse me.
problem.
Let me let
I'm
me let me
sorry,
ask
I'm
you a
confused.
but let me ask you a
I'm a
question
little
because I know the chat
confused.
is
I'm
reacting to
sorry.
this.
I'm
Uh,
sorry, Smitty. My phone had somebody called. I'm confused. What is he saying about Mexico?
so real quick, well you're asking the question that I'm gonna ask. So East LA, when you say, oh, thank you, somebody's got an echo. When you say inherently violent, that sounds problematic because when I hear that, I think, hey, yeah, let me just get when you say inherently violent, what do you mean when you say that? And then I want to go to OD.
Sir, the reason my face is disfigured is because I was attacked by cholos. Okay? That's why. By the way, that's also, sir, I am one of those people that you'll see on the east side in a wheelchair or with walking assistance modes, right? It's not because we had some kind of problem physically. It's because you go down a bus and you see people like us, right? Because we come from the barrio, sir. Because we've either fought or we've been attacked. Okay, there are many, many like me.
So real quick,
So
yeah,
why did the moderator turn off my phone when
yeah.
I'm talking
So
the truth? I'm talking honestly.
let me explain. It's what you're suggesting in the sense that I don't know what happened to you. Obviously, I don't think anybody should. You got hey, Issa, like, can you mute for me because you got echo? I'll bring you back in. I'll let you answer.
I'll mute every time I stop talking. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just because you got an echo. But I think it's a suggestion that, again, what happened to you, obviously, I don't condone of course.
I could back it up with facts. First of all, when you go into the prison system in Southern California, there is a tier for the white gangs. There's a tier for the black gangs. There are 2 tiers for the Mexican gangs. For those who are predominantly Mexican American, Chicano like me, and for those who are predominantly Latino. Okay, we overwhelm the population. We are the majority.
Well, but real quick,
In the
real quick.
California prison system. Why does your moderator?
I'm
real
muting
quick,
you.
so I
I'm
brought
the
her
one
up.
muting you.
Why are you muting me when I'm
I'm
just
the one
speaking the
muting
truth?
you. Shh, be
That
quiet.
is
Be quiet. I'm the one muting you because you're feeding a stereotype, and that's not what we do here.
that's not a
No,
stereotype. That's a fact.
it is a stereotype because you're saying that we are all inherently violent, and you're feeding into a stereotype that's not true.
What the hell? It's giving eugenics. What?
Smitty.
Yeah, no.
What up,
I
Smitty
was
in the
right.
panel?
So OD, let me just let Saj finish your thought, and then I'm coming to you. So real quick, give me 1 second, OD. Go ahead, Saj, finish your
Okay.
thought on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was my thought. That was my thought. And like when I said that I had my finger on the button, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
When he comes up and saying that we are all inherently violent, and he gives his own what's the word, what's the word I'm looking for, the personal
Like perspective,
anecdote
anecdote.
is the word I'm looking for. Yeah,
Okay.
that's not that does that's his own personal experience, and it doesn't speak to all Mexicans, right? We are not all inherently violent. We are not all in the prison system. That doesn't speak to everybody, and he's feeding a stereotype, and that goes into a white supremacist talking point about all Mexicans.
Okay. All right. No, I appreciate that, Sash. Let me go to OD. OD. Hey, Shantae, how are you, fam? Thank you guys all for coming in, by the way. Please tap the screen, share out the live. This is an important discussion. And Issa, I would like for you to wait for a minute, right, and just kind of listen to what folks are saying about what you said. And if you still want to come up, then let me think about it. But I think it's important that we don't perpetuate, right, something that's harmful. Like I don't want my life to be one of those that's not about unity. I actually want it to be about unity. So let me let OD come in. Go ahead, OD. OD, you there?
Well, first of all, Smitty, I miss you. I see you're blushing. You're like,
Miss
I
you too,
miss you
man.
too, OD.
Of
I
course.
miss
Listen,
Covey out
we
there being an activist. I even miss you, Sash. Give me a hug, Sash.
even wait. Sasha's one of the
I
top
listen,
now.
listen. Sash be muting me like East LA. But anyway, as far as East LA,
Look,
just to make something clear, East LA is a known
I'm gonna let that
like
slide, but
racist
okay.
Zionist. Yep. So East LA is a known racist Zionist, so no one takes him serious. He goes on all the panels and tells us how great he is. But according to his picture, it looks like he's aged 100 years since birth. So he's just like an old skeleton out there just looking for something to do. I'm sure him getting beat up by Mexicans has nothing to do with him being a racist Zionist.
well,
Now,
let's
back to the
let's move on
topic.
from East LA.
I
He's
was
not
just
up on the
wanted to say
panel,
I
so let's
miss
move
you,
on.
Smitty.
Go ahead.
Yep, you're right. You're right. But he was talking shit about us, so I got to come for our people. So I
Okay.
just wanted to say I miss you, Smitty. I'm
Miss you
following you
too, man.
back, and I'll
All
come
right.
check in. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Bye,
All
Smitty.
right.
And Smitty, follow me back. What's up with
I
that?
got you.
You don't follow
I got you.
Republicans? Okay. All right. Bye.
OD, he cracked me up. All right. I'll see you later. I'm gonna let you
Can
go.
you drop me? Can someone drop me? Granny
I
doesn't know
got
how
you.
to drop.
I got you. Okay. All right. Let me go to Shade. Shade, what are your thoughts on Black Brown Unity? Why has it been so difficult to achieve?
I was just gonna come up and first ask, like, what is this Black and Brown unity, and what do you hope for it to achieve, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so, well, I think it's an open question. I mean, I can answer it for myself. I think that we have a shared history. I think that unity in terms of what it looks like, I think it's voting together, working together, pooling resources. And I think that those resources could honestly transform America. That's my perspective. Now, other people might have a different And when I talk about brown, I'm talking about the Latino and indigenous community. Now, there are other communities that could fall under brown as well, but those are the two that I think about. But
Okay.
what are your thoughts, Shay?
So more so American brown communities.
Yeah. What are your
Okay.
thoughts?
No, I think that's reasonable. On the shared history, I'm assuming you're talking about like suppression, oppression, through the system, things like that. Okay, I guess then you could have some pretty strong points. I don't know why it's been difficult to achieve. Obviously, there's a lot of division, but yeah, I just leave it up to that. Then I guess you guys can carry the conversation. I just really wanted to know what you meant by the black and brown.
Okay. Yeah. I'll let you go. No, thanks, Shay, for coming up. I appreciate that. All right, we're gonna let Shay go. Dr. Phil, hey, you still part of us. So no, you invited to the cookout, fam. So no need for you to feel like you're not part of this conversation too. Let me go to Black Ice. Black Ice, what are your thoughts, fam? Good to see you, brother. What are your thoughts on this?
I just wanted to say this. Well, two things. East LA is no different. We have to recognize that, like you said, some supremacy talking points, a lot of society forcing this whole making the prison system bigger than what the community actually is, and we build the hype. And so it's just not him. You hear other people who innocently do this because we've been trained socially to think that that's the biggest issue, and it's not. We don't take the time to say there's a 1.8 million people incarcerated total, and the majority of them are white tea. But yet we have these talking points, and people come up in here talking about the reason why the community is because we got people killing each other, so on and so forth, which doesn't really represent the mass abundance of us. But we walk around believing this whole myth. And so, and that's a winner every time. So he's not, even though, he's a little bit, but we have to understand that there's a lot of us that choose to not look at the facts versus what we can change positively.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. That's a good point. But what do you think about, I can't remember, I think his name was Married Man. I think that was his username. What he said about that the prison system, even though it is a smaller population, that kind of reflects upon the larger population of people that are not in prison. Do you feel like that's not true? That culture does. What do you think?
That's not true. And if he believed that too, he would be more scared about the people that are incarcerating him versus the other minorities that exist.
That's a good point. All right. That's why I love having you up here, brother. That's a good point. Let me go to Kelly. Kelly, fam, how are you? Good to see you. Kelly is an Afro Latina that puts in the work. So if you're not following Kelly, please do so. What are your thoughts, fam, on Black and Brown unity? Why has it been so difficult to achieve?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Smitty. I've missed you.
Me too, fam.
I always speak from the perspective of an Afro-Latina and also an immigrant. So for me, it is the lack of understanding and the lack of knowing of history. And at least I can say that from the Latino part, I will never dare to speak on Black people in America. So I give my perspective from that side, from this side. We understand that, unfortunately, for many Latinos, when we come to United States, when we speak about integrating or being in America, it's always what's the word I'm looking for? It's not integrating. It's always assimilating. Thank you, Sash. I'm sorry. You know my English. So unfortunately, when many Latinos speak about integrating in American society, they recognize that only as being white. And that is a hard stereotype to break when, from many Latino countries, we also have the white brainwash, the whitewash, not just of our history, but also we have all this media telling us that when you come to US, white is right and nothing else, and everything else is just shady or, all these white supremacist stereotypes. And obviously we need to, it comes from a lack of education, a lack of understanding. When we come here, we believe that integration means white, and we don't, and a lot of people are not interested on learning about Black history, which is American history. And I can speak on also, when you go do your citizenship test, and they have like 200 questions. None of them, it's about Black American history. Like things like that. Like if you recognize that pattern, when you come here as an immigrant or as a Latino, it's unfortunately what the country tells you is that assimilation means white. And unfortunately, a lot of people, because of the lack of education, they keep believing this. So it's lack of education. We need to educate ourselves and about what really America is. And I leave it that now. Thank you.
No, thank you. Is there anybody? Let me see. Let me bring some new folks up. East LA, I'm tempted to bring you up to have a conversation with Kelly, because I feel like Kelly is the person that you really need to speak to on this. I'm tempted. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all would like to see a conversation between East LA and Kelly. If not, put a 2, and we're gonna move on. But I'm tempted. I don't know if I'm there yet. Let me bring up someone else, a couple other people, and then we're gonna continue the discussion. Okay, it ain't looking good, right? I'm a man of the people, y'all. So, whatever y'all want. Let me bring up a couple of other new people. Okay, it looks like it's about 50-50. E-Dub, what are your thoughts on Black and Brown unity? Why has it been so difficult to achieve?
The last woman that spoke, she hit the nail on the head on something I didn't even think about. Is that they do not teach African American history, any other history on the test to get in this country. That just was like that opened up a lot to my mind right now, right? Because I'm always asking you, like, why don't you guys see what we see? Because their minds are being conditioned to look another way. That was a very, very wow. Thank you for saying that. I learned something new today. I'm doing a look at too. But I'll say this though, because I grew up in Arizona. And I live in Phoenix, and I'm African American, and my mom, she grew up next to and near a barrio. As a child growing up, right? So my Latin influence as African American has been like, well, you got brothers, you got Mexican cats, we're chill, right? But there were divides that I did see sometimes too in some of these communities. The thing I've noticed though, and I think you guys will agree with me on this, is that excuse my language for a second, an asshole was an asshole. Right. And what I mean by that is that I don't walk into somebody else's neighborhood or somebody else's life acting like an ass. Right. And the thing that I've seen on both sides of the fence with Black people, and I've seen with like Mexican people, is that they carry who they are into other people's houses and other people's situations. Right. So what happens is that if you go into somebody's house acting a fool, right, there's a problem's going to happen. Right. And then all of a sudden the Mexican guy or the Black guy's kind of like, that guy was doing this to me. That guy was doing that to me. Right. And all of a sudden you have a fight between two individuals, and you naturally go to your side, which is either the Black or the Mexican side, right? Not recognizing that, hey, you know what, my guy was being an ass today in your home, right? Or vice versa, that guy's being an ass in your home right now. But people always go to the particular corners though to protect the position, right? We have to call out the bad behavior towards each other, regardless of who it may be, even if it's that person on our side of the fence. That's one thing that I have noticed a lot, because somebody was talking about this yesterday, and was just like Caucasian people going into Mexican spaces, is that when you go into somebody else's house, you act a fool, man, that you're not going to get a nice response. And why should somebody respect you? You know what I'm saying? Why should somebody just allow you to behave how you want to behave in somebody else's house? So I think that's one of the divides. What the lady said first, that's a huge part of it. And then the second part of it is just, we have to hold our people accountable for their behavior walking into someone's home and not understanding the culture. I know some Spanish, right? So when I go into like I'm almost done talking to you. I'm sorry I'm talking too long.
No, you're good.
I go into when I'm in Arizona, there's a store called El Rancho, right? So one of the things I do when I go in there, because I know most people that work there speak Spanish, is I let them know that I speak Spanish, right? And from that, there's an automatic exchange of, okay, we got respect for each other right now, right? And then moving forward, everything is fine, right? But if I go in there and saying, hey, can you speak English for me so I can know what you're saying, right? Now we got a problem because now you're a problem in my particular area.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm in there, like, tienes, necesito tres tacos or cabeza or whatever I want, you know, menudo, whatever. I'm gonna speak my Spanish, you know, when I go in there, and there's instant respect that's built. If we can just respect each other up front as individuals, right, there can be so much more progress that's happening in communities.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that, Ida. Appreciate that. Let me go to Rose. Rose, sister, how you doing, fam? I hope you're doing well. What are your thoughts on this?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. So I wanted to speak on what Kelly, I believe it was Kelly that spoke. I wasn't paying attention to who was speaking, but I heard what was said. And that's the honesty, right? Because we do know, if you learn Latin American history, we learn that these countries had multiple different words to express white adjacent, like mixture of different white, you know, race was on the bottom. It's a tiered system, it's a hierarchy. And that is, they're basically the caste system. So with that being said, and those ideas being brought with Latino immigrants to the United States, you have this negative stereotypes of Black people already in their own country, and it's brought here. Also, here in America, we have our own negative stereotypes against immigrants, Latino or even Black immigrants, because we also know that there's no unity between Black immigrants and Black Americans. That's another issue, right? That needs to be worked on. But what I find is people are not willing to have honest conversation. So I do appreciate when a Latina woman gets up and speak the truth, right? The other thing is, and to address the issues, address these stereotypes, inform each other what's going on, what's being said, how, you know, how we can correct these misinformation and wrong ideas about each other. The other thing is, when we are informed ourselves, oftentimes, because I am an immigrant, I'm a Jamaican immigrant, I find it that it's my duty to inform my community when they have negative stereotypes against Black Americans. When I am informed, what I know about the history, it becomes my duty. A lot of times we don't want to do that as people because we don't want to be isolated when our community rejects the information that we are sharing with them, how we're trying to inform them. Like, no, the idea that you have is wrong. And I've had that experience. I've seen Latins who speak to me about, you know, have had that experience in their community when, you know, they learned the history, for instance, in undergrad, taking the politics of race, a course called the Politics of Race in undergrad. I had a Dominican classmate. We had this ongoing dialogue about, you know, a lot of the things we learn about Black history and how race is used politically in this country and even abroad. And we talked about how our community shun us when we bring this information back to them. And she was tell me a bunch of information about her own family that she's like, at this point, I don't even want to be a part of the family. That's what she was telling me. So that is one of the biggest issue, like trying to bring the information back, trying to inform, and people wanting to cling to these ideas rather than be enlightened and move towards unity.
Okay. I mean, no, another very, very solid comment. Another very, very solid comment. I'm going to bring up a new panelist and get their perspective. And then we're going to keep rotating. Let's bring up Petty. Petty, what are your thoughts? Why has Black-Brown unity been so difficult to achieve? What's your perspective?
So the perspective that I have is, and I think one of your other panel members touched on it a bit, is people have a difficult time reconciling what they've been indoctrinated to learn, right? So I'm Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican, but I'm mixed race. My grandmother was, she's since passed away, but she was a Black Hispanic woman or Afro-Latina. And, colorism is very prevalent. She did everything she could to straighten her hair and lighten it and assimilate. And when I was younger growing up, I never realized that there was commonality between me and my African-American brothers and sisters that I grew up in Jersey City. As you know, the communities there are very tight-knit. But I think, and one of your other panel members mentioned something about respect. I quasi-agree with that. I think it has more to do with understanding. So when we feel understood, we feel respected. When he mentioned that he goes into spaces and when he can speak their language, they feel understood. So now they feel comfortable. They let their guard down. A lot of the debates that I've seen between Hispanics and Black people usually border on the, well, we had it this way and this was our heritage and this is our history and this is our plight. And then, Hispanics will come in and they'll say, well, this is our heritage and this is our plight. I think the problem is we don't have a fundamental understanding that we have our own struggles, but they somehow intertwine within the same system. Another problem or another observation that I've made is that this country is rooted in teams. What side do you belong to? We do it. We encourage it in sports, right? If you're a Knicks fan and I'm a Bulls fan and I'm better than you, my team is better than you. We do it in sports. We do it in culture. We do it in religion. We do it with race. And it's something that's embedded within the core of this country. We always want to feel like we belong to a specific group. And then that just causes us to go head to head with one another. Even if it's in good banter like sports, sometimes it can get violent, sometimes it can get ugly. And I feel much easier to do when you're indoctrinated to dislike the color of your skin or, I think a young lady mentioned the caste system. That was a very real thing. The lighter you are, the more status you had in society, in Hispanic culture. Again, when I grew up, I started, realizing, oh my God, even though I'm fairer skin, I come from Black and brown people, and this is my heritage. And then was the wide awakening. I moved to the South. I married a Black man. I have my children are Black, and I was working at this place as a customer service rep. This was before I went to med school. And her name was Brittany. And she looked at me. She looked at the pictures of my family. She said, beautiful family. I said, thank you. And she said, but I don't like that. And I said, what do you mean you don't like that? She's a Black woman. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, oh, I don't like that. Is he a good man? Is he a good father? I said, yeah, he's amazing. Side note, we've been together for 30 years. We've been married for 30 years. And she says, well, good Black men who take care of their children are hard to find. I don't like to see them with a non-Black woman. And it occurred to me in that moment, I said, no matter how much I embrace my African-American roots, I'm, per 23andMe, 35%, Nigerian, Black, like Congo and so on and so forth, like 24% indigenous. And I said, no matter how much I've embraced that in my life, I still got othered by somebody who I thought was one of me, So that's a hard pill to swallow. I understood where she was coming from because I try to respect her boundaries. But yeah, I think it's hard because again, there's a lot of indoctrination, a lot of things that we hear as kids, a lot of things that we take with us into our adulthood, our experiences that validate us. But yeah.
Let me, Petty, I appreciate your comment. Real quick, for like 30 seconds, I want to go to Kelly.
Yeah, that's all I need too, though. She said something that's very interesting, man, is that I'm from Phoenix, and I'm a third generation native here. And when my mother was growing up in South Phoenix, if you were Mexican and you spoke Spanish in school, you would get suspended from school. Right. So just being Mexican in general was just the whole culture was always being shunned and always, from a large racist perspective. And the interesting thing is that from that, a lot of Mexicans started devaluing themselves and think if they become more Caucasian or become more white and assimilate, that they'll be accepted more. She said something about her mom, like her grandma was dyeing their hair blonde. So like a lot of Mexican women were dyeing their hair blonde. In Latin communities, a lot of Mexican people stopped pronouncing their name Monica, they started pronouncing their name Monica, right? Or Martinez, instead of Martinez, it's Montanez, right? Or they would shorten it to Martin, right? They were taking away all of their Latin accents away from themselves, right? Yep. And then also parents And parents stopped teaching their kids Spanish as well. So we have a whole generation of children right now, Mexican children, that don't speak Spanish. My wife is Mexican. And she doesn't know Spanish. She knows some, you know what I mean? But she wasn't able to communicate with her grandmother because, you know, that cutoff of of Latin pride, whatever it may be, was cut off. And my wife has been denied the ability to speak Spanish because of that, you know what I mean? Which is horrible, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that just goes back to something she said too, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I want to hear from Kelly, but then I also want to talk about something that Notorious BGP, who, if you know my panels, she's been a frequent contributor, and I always value her perspective. She said part of the problem is everyone keeps generalizing entire diasporas. I want to come to that point next. So let's put a pin in that one because I want to come back to that too. But Kelly, what did you think? I know you want to comment on what Petty said, so I want to give you that opportunity because I think there was some nuances to what she said that I think could be interesting for a discussion. And we could talk about, I think it's interesting also about folks not learning Spanish and what that means and all that good stuff. And absolutely, sister, we'll go to Kelly, then we'll go down to Covey and get Covey's perspective too. Go ahead, Kelly.
So yes, of course. We got to remember that race is a social construct. So for some people, it doesn't matter. Like you can see in me, I'm a black woman. I have my Afro hair, but I'm also a light-skinned woman. So when you come to America and you have interactions with black people, it's when you really understand the history, when you really understand the nuances, and you have some type of pushback because of your interpersonal relationships. My question would be, would you blame black people for not trusting other races or ethnicities? And I make this clear. The lady, not because they want to come.
Oh, real quick, Kelly. Okay, Ann already took care of it. Go ahead, Kelly. You continue. I was going.
No, I'm not meaning to disrespect anyone. I'm just trying to bring some nuances.
No. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So it is like I understand what happened, but like it would you blame black people in, like I said, my question would be, would you blame black people for not trusting other races or ethnicities when it comes to, like, you know, not agreeing with the dating outside their race? It's just, you know, it goes to those lines. If I've been said the same, somebody has said the same to me, like another black woman
the
told me the
opportunity
same,
to
and I
answer
was
Kelly's
like,
question.
Yeah, Patty, yes. So, I would love for you to answer Kelly's question, then I want to go to Covey.
Okay, Kelly, so the answer to that is absolutely no. I would never blame them for their lack of trust, for outsiders dating within their community or even allowing outsiders into their space. That story that I told you was my awakening. I navigated through my life believing that, you know, we lived harmoniously. As I mentioned, I was raised in Jersey City. I went to, predominantly Black and Hispanic schools. We were each other's neighbors. We were intertwined in each other's communities. So I didn't realize that I was different, or that I was perceived as different by people in the African American community. So it was my awakening to realize, holy crap, these intersectionalities matter, right? I belong to several different groups, and how I navigate through those groups impacts the people around me. So yeah, I would never blame them for something like that. That was definitely my awakening.
Okay.
Yeah. And
go ahead, Kelly, really quick, and then I want to go to Covey, but go ahead really quick.
So yeah, but it's like, I understand that. And yeah, it's very valid. But some of the things that, I speak about most of the time is trying to make Latinos understand that it's race in this country, it's everything. And I understand because you grew up around Black and brown people all your life and you thought everything was, so that's when the lack of history comes from. And I'm pretty glad for you that, now you understand it and that happened to you. So thank you, Sneedy.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I love these discussions.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this is good. This is good stuff. Covey, go ahead, fam. Definitely want to get your perspective.
Yes. Okay. So what I was listening to with regards to the proximity of power, right? To power. I think this was something that I had mentioned in my opening statement. And this is something that we can see across the globe, where non-Black groups of people who have not deconstructed their, or who don't work to deconstruct their anti-Blackness, they do cling on to this very racial order that strangles them as well. Right? So they try to kind of scramble closer to whiteness as long as it guarantees like this one thing. And that one thing is that Black people remain the floor beneath their feet. Right? And this is what I was talking about, right? Because people have understood, right, that the true kind of currency of this racial hierarchy is kind of like having a proximity to power or a proximity to whiteness that has been purchased by our dehumanization. And so if you notice, people participate in our dehumanization because they have realized that in order to get closer in proximity to power, you have to participate in the dehumanization of Black people too, right? This is kind of like the oldest contract of this colonial apartheid state world that we live in, because we live in a global apartheid state. Okay, that was created by colonialism, that was created by slavery. And by the way, like, okay, so they have realized this. These are the people, by the way, who are not into, like, who don't care about liberation for all. These are people who don't care about breaking like the wheel. These are people who just want to continue upholding this wheel, right? The issue is that they have realized that this old contract of colonial world that is continuously renewed in every single nation, that builds its dreams on our backs while at the same time preaching equality with this like mouthful of lies, right? And until the world realizes and confronts this fact that anti-Blackness is not a malfunction, it is not a mistake, it is not a coincidence, okay? It is the engine that is driving these systems of oppression. Anti-Blackness is the engine that drives capitalism. It's the engine that drives colonialism currently in our current world, right? From capitalism, right? Literally that was birthed on slave ship and colonialism and all of these different things, right? Unless people finally realize that anti-Blackness is the engine that is driving this oppression, there will be no liberation for anybody. Nobody. And I'm telling you that nobody, non-Black people, and I'm not talking about like white people, right? Because white people are at the top. They're the ones who created like this global hierarchy, okay? To non-Black people, you will never ever be liberated unless you understand that anti-Blackness is also literally the engine of your own dehumanization, because the world that we live in does not simply just fear Blackness. It literally relies and depends on our Black people, our perpetual subjugation to define itself as human. People are literally relying on the subjugation of Black people to define themselves as human. And what they don't realize is, okay, that in the grand scheme of things, anytime they uphold anti-Black racism, they're also upholding their own oppression. And when I'm talking about anti-Black racism, this is why I bring it up from a global perspective. I'm a person who's from the global South, right? Originally. I'm talking about it from a global scale. Like, you know, global systems are literally dependent on the G-side, on the subjugation, on the oppression of Black people and African people. And unless people finally realize that the foundation of all these systems of oppression is anti-Blackness, they will never free themselves. And some people, you know what, Smitty? They're okay with not freeing themselves. Some people are perfectly fine with not freeing themselves as long as they have somebody else that they can step on, and as long as they can get as close as possible to the wheel. And those are the people I don't care about any unity for. I'm telling you right now, I've reached an age where if somebody does not care about breaking the wheel and they just want to continue putting me like in my place, quote unquote, because I don't have a place. The only person who can determine my place is God, okay? But anybody who continues trying to profit off of or benefit off of keeping me on that position, that person is not my ally, and I have absolutely no intention of wasting time with them, that person is no different to me than like a white person. Okay. A racist white person. Because there are white people as well who like are interested in that, right? So that's fine. But yeah, that's my first metric, right? Basically. Sorry about that. I just
No,
wanted to do that.
sorry, that was no shit. No, that was incredible. Again, it actually. I know Sasha, it's gonna be your turn. I know you want to say something, but I want to take that and take a piece of it. Right, take what you said, take a piece of it for those of us in America. Because what I'm trying to understand is, and please, y'all, please interact with the live. If you like what you're saying, like what you're hearing, tap the screen. If you want to, please gift the panelists. Please support the live. This is an important discussion, I think, for all of us. You don't have to be Black, Latino, Indigenous to see the impact of what this could be. Hey, Noor, I'm doing good, fam. I hope you're doing okay. And how impactful this can be. And I appreciate all the love. Thank you so much for supporting this platform. I really appreciate all of y'all. Love all of y'all. Y'all know how I feel about you. And so, Sister Ann, you always say the right thing to crack me up. I love you, fam. So let me go to Sasha, and then Sasha, say what you want to say. But I want to give this question to Sasha, Kelly, and then Petty too. Because here's what I've seen, right, in regards to voting. That, when we talk about the Latino, Indigenous, and Black communities, we're not voting the same. And what I see, at least on this app, I can't say I don't see this much in LA, but I see this on this app where even with what's happened right after the election, it's still a lot of people still down with this. I don't want to, with Trump. I just say that. I got other words to describe him, but it's still a lot of people of the Latino Indigenous community, a lot more people than I would think, let's put it that way, that are still down with this man. So, Sash, of course, interject what you would like, and please educate me and the chat as to why this is still a thing. Go ahead, fam.
Okay, so first I wanna add another point in there. So like with the forced identities that we have on us, right? And I'm speaking about like the Latino and Hispanic identity. And I want to say like Kelly and I have this talk a lot, right? So when we think of somebody that is Latino or Hispanic, you think of somebody, for example, like Miss Mexico, right? Like Miss Mexico that just won.
Yep.
So you think of somebody like that, right? And you don't think of anybody that is Afro Latino, right? You don't think of anybody that is Afro Mexicano, like the people like that are automatically left out. Kelly. You think these people are not brought into the conversation when you think of somebody with the label "quote unquote" Latino or "quote unquote" Hispanic, right? You automatically think of the people that are lighter skinned with these forced identities, and I think that needs to be talked about, right? There, that forced identity that was put on you, the lighter skinned identity, and there's somebody in the comments, I think that said, and this really gets on my nerves when people say this, that there is not racism in Latin America, there is not racism in Mexico, and that is just a false statement. That is just a false statement, because it is. There are problems in Mexico. There are problems in Latin America when it comes to race, and the casta system is still there. If it wasn't there, the term Afro Mexicano wouldn't have just been acknowledged just a few years ago. There still wouldn't be problems with the pueblo originarios. It's still a thing. It's still a thing. Just because it's not talked about as much doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Right. Yep.
And as far as your question, Smitty, with the way people vote, and I can speak to it just here in Texas, because here in Texas is probably one of the worst areas with the way people vote, or don't vote because people don't vote at all. And it's a lot that has to do with misinformation, with miseducation, with a lack of education. And I think I know you said you didn't want to talk too much about religion, but I think religion does play a big part of it. A lot of people still lay into their Catholic values, and they play into that. So the Republican side weaponizes that a lot. The with their being pro-life and all that kind of stuff, I think they weaponize that a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of miseducation and misinformation going around with the way that people vote.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just, I can't imagine, right? I can't imagine voting for Trump, period. But if I saw somebody that looked like me, at a school pickup line get dragged into a detention facility, like if I voted for him, that would immediately make me reconsider and change my vote, I would think. And so I'm just trying to figure out why, certain people are just so dug in and still voting for this man, still support. I just don't understand it. Let me go to Kelly. What do you think, fam?
Ooh-wee.
And then we'll go to Petty.
Well, I love to, like I said before, I love to bring the perspective of a Black Latina. And first of all, Hispanic and Latino are colonizer terms. I use it just for the sake of conversations. But another nuance that people don't talk about a lot is that we have to remember that as race is a social construct, it works different depending on where in the globe you are located. Latinos, and I'm talking about white Latinos, they are not considered white here. But when they go to their own countries, when they go to our countries, they are the white people from Latin America. They are the descendants of the Spaniards. So that is the nuance that a lot of Latinos don't like to talk about. They like to say, "Oh well, but I have a black cousin, but I have una abuelita que is black." But we always have to remember, race is a social construct. It's not about who is in your family; it's about how you look. So how you look is how people is going to treat you. So our white people from Latin America, they come here, like I said before, they assimilate to whiteness and white ideology. It comes from the lack of knowledge of history. It also comes from the racism that is in our own countries. And that is a big part of it. Like Sash also said, religion plays a big part of it, but they don't realize that the Christianity that they practice is not the same as that white nationalist Christianity that the white people, the white people practice here in America. And that's a hard pill to swallow for them. They really believe these things that the white people tell them or they show them on the TV and don't realize. And I'm gonna go a little further and say most Latinos, I'm gonna say most Latinos don't even believe that white supremacy and racist systems are a reality in United States.
Wow.
Like I always say, I participate in the Spanish speaking side of TikTok most of the times. And when you talk about when you go to these panels in Spanish, they really believe it's about economics, it's about the eggs, it's oh my God, it's deportations. But now that they see what's happening, they are running around like headless chickens screaming, "Oh my God, racism." And every time I come to these panels and I have to tell them, do you forget what this country has done to Black people in America? Have you not noticed that till this day, Black people are strange fruited? Don't you realize what happened after they unalived that CK man, that they had to close the HBCUs? And when you come to these panels and Smitty, they kick me out. And I'm a Latina talking to my people.
Wow.
And Sash can tell
I believe you.
Even when you go to these big TikTokers that speak about politics in TikTok, they don't bring a Black Latino perspective. And when indigenous people from Mexico or from other sites in places in Latin America, they don't even want to hear it. It's a hard pill to swallow, but we need to address it. And honestly, it's hard. as a Black Latina is very hard. Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sneak.
No, thank
I'll
you.
stay
Thank you,
here.
fam. Thank you, fam. Let me go to Petty. Petty, what are your thoughts? And then I want to bring in Notorious next.
Yes, of course. So I have a very anecdotal story to share with you guys. And this is definitely on topic. You know, I have a coworker. I'm a physician. I work at I don't want to tell you guys where I work for safety
No,
reasons.
don't.
And I work with other physicians and nurses, and there's a physician. He's a Cuban immigrant. You know, he's made some really disparaging statements that we have, you know, confronted him about. We've involved management, we've involved HR. This is pertaining to, like, for example, I was watching football with one of my coworkers who's also a physician. He is a Haitian Black man, and we were watching football, and he said to me, "Jessica, you're married to a Black man." I said, "I am," and he goes, You think they're attractive? Like, do you like their noses? Right? Something really just like off the cuff. Yeah. Something really off the cuff. Of course, we called them out on it. It was a big deal. We involved management. We involved HR. But going back to your question, and this is just me setting the stage for how this gentleman, you know, thinks. Like, you know, he just arrived from Cuba. He had been immigrating for, I think it was like the greater of 10 years. He popped in and out of other countries. And when he first got here, he would stuff like Joe Rogan podcasts in my face and say, "Oh, listen to what this guy's saying." And I'm like, "Listen, I'm open to what other people have to say because I won't know what's going on in the world unless I listen. But I happen to know firsthand that guy is racist, and I'm just not with it." So I asked. So we start having a political conversation. He says, "Yeah, my parents and I were gonna, you know, I can't vote, but my parents are gonna vote for Trump. They're naturalized."
Hold on, I think Petty got a call. Hold on, y'all. This is very interesting. Stay with it. Tap the screen, share out the live. I think this is very important. We'll give Petty a few more seconds, and then if not, we'll go to Notorious. But all right. So Petty, I'm gonna come back to you. I want to hear the rest of that story, but let me bring Notorious. Notorious fam, how you doing? Please tell me your thoughts.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So one thing, like I had mentioned in the comments, I think part of the problem is the generalization of entire diasporas. Especially when we're talking about the quote unquote Latino Hispanic diaspora, Latino Hispanic, they're not racial groups and they're also not ethnic groups. And so the experiences of Mexican people, even within that diaspora, is going to be much different from those in Mexico versus those that were raised and brought up in the United States. Our culture is different from Puerto Rican culture, from Dominican culture, from Colombian culture, all of these things. And those are the larger homogenized cultures, not to mention all the other small, the quote unquote smaller ethnic cultures from indigenous tribes, African tribes that have kept their cultures in Latin America and so forth, and even Asian. A lot of people forget that Asians are also part of the Latino Hispanic diaspora. So generalizing the entire Latino Hispanic as a race or as a large ethnic group is one huge problem because we don't share the same ideologies across the board. We don't share the same cultures across the board. And then on top of that, you have 4 different racial categorizations according to U.S. caste systems, right? And how we racialize people in the United States. There's also a difference between Latin American caste systems and then also the U.S. caste system. So people who do migrate from Latin America into the United States have to totally switch caste systems as well. So they're used to one particular type of caste system and how they're viewed in Latin America.
Right.
Then coming into the United States, they're going to be viewed completely different.
Right.
And so there's those nuances that happen. So I think having more conversations on the nuances of the caste systems and racial identity and how these things works are important. But also understanding that caste systems aren't just straight up and down linear. If we had more conversations on the nuances of history, then we would understand that within white supremacy, they will place us, all of us, on different castes depending on what benefits them in the long run. And so depending on time period, depending on region, and depending on population, you're going to see more anti-Blackness in the Southeast, where you'll see more anti-nativeness, anti-immigrant kind of stuff in the Southwest, right? So you're going to see the different kind of nuances that are happening, and they will change up based off of those kind of demographics that they're seeing or that they're dealing with. So it's always based off of what benefits white supremacy and how they're going to switch up the caste system when they benefit. And that's also an important nuance that a lot of people don't see. And again, it mostly comes from not understanding history, not knowing history. And then when people look at history, they look at it a very broad generalization instead of looking at the nuances and how all of these things occurred and where it all stems from. A lot of the times we keep pointing our fingers at each other and not recognizing that it's white supremacy that is causing the division and causing the psyops, right? So the big thing that people of color in general need to do is decolonize all of those things. Understand where your biases lies, where your prejudice lies, because as people of color, we can't be racist, but we can definitely be bigoted. We can definitely be prejudiced. And understanding those things and understanding where that lies, like somebody had mentioned somewhat earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, that not speaking Spanish is part of assimilating into whiteness. But a lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of our grandparents, like mine in particular, who's still alive, was beaten in school if she spoke Spanish. So in order for her to keep her children protected, she didn't teach them Spanish because she didn't want them being punished for speaking the language. On top of that, also losing our indigenous languages that we lost when Spanish was forced upon us. So there's a lot of like history that isn't really talked about in understanding, and people just push it off as proximity to whiteness or white adjacentness or wanting to be white, when there's way more historical nuance within all of that. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to add that into
that was really good. And I want to come back to something you said, Notorious, and just get a little bit more clarity, because I think it's important, right? And then also, obviously, panelists, please feel free to weigh in. Patty, I'm gonna come back to you here in a second. I know I want to hear the rest of your story, but let me just dialogue real quick with Notorious on something you said that's interesting. So with the I'm gonna say the Latino community, and just use that term just for a minute, here in America, what you said was interesting, and I want to just focus on it for a second about what you were saying about, hey, if it's the community in the Southeast, it's more so anti-Black, rhetoric, and if it's a community in the Southwest, it's more anti-Indigenous rhetoric. So do you feel like that, that community specifically kind of adopts what the general, and anti-whatever, hopefully this is making sense, right? Whether it be anti-Black or anti-Indigenous, that they just kind of adapt what the larger narrative tells them to do. And if you do believe that, why do you think that is the case?
Oh, most definitely. Because if we understand white supremacy psychology, we understand that they target certain individual groups and push propaganda that causes division. And that's a big thing that I think a lot of people kind of miss when it comes to that. And even when we're looking at, for example, in the Southwest, we get a little bit of Black history. We get no Mexican history or quote unquote Latino history. Like it's just not spoken about. So even in the Southwest, even with the anti-Blackness in the Southwest from the brown community, it's coming from lack of education, right? It's coming from lack of nuance in history. It's coming from like all of those things. So then when you're in a predominantly Black area, the same thing will happen. It's not understanding the history, not understanding the education, and the anti-immigrant or the anti-Indigenous sentiments kind of start to creep in, because they will push this kind of propaganda where you'll see that division. You'll see how a lot of anti-immigrant propaganda will be pushed into the Black community. And then you'll see that division start increasing. You'll see a lot of anti-Black propaganda being pushed into the brown community. So you start seeing that kind of division. So it's very targeted. And I think a lot of the time with these conversations, when we're talking about white supremacy, the one thing that we don't talk about a lot, which should be like centered, is the psychology of white supremacy and how they utilize these tactics every day to cause division and to literally shape our perspectives on different diasporas of people. And we see it all the time. Even when it comes to data, like you were talking earlier about voting, right? That label of Latino Hispanic doesn't break down the Latino Hispanic into white Latinos, black Latinos. You know what I'm saying? So then that gets convoluted. Then, so in voting, we're considered a race when it comes to that data, but in the census, we're not considered a race. Right? So it's very convoluted. Even when we're talking about statistical data, like with the prisons, it's not uniformed across the board. So some jails will mark down brown people as white, because we're technically legally white, but then mark them as Hispanic Latino. Some won't even have Hispanic Latino as a label and just mark them down as white. Some will mark them down as both. Some, so it's not uniformed across the board. So the data is also very skewed, on top of not putting that information out to people so people don't know what the actual data is. You start building this idea that you're not affected, right? Like I may not be affected because it's not happening to me, but it is happening to the larger group of my Mexican people, right? You see what I'm saying? So when we're not getting correct data, we're not seeing what the actual impacts are happening, which sometimes does create that illusion and delusion of a proximity to whiteness that many people don't actually have, but believe that they have, if that makes sense.
Ooh, no. I mean, the way you said that, because, because and even I'm guilty of this, and I try not to be, right? Because my experience in LA has been that a lot of the folks I speak to here in LA that are, Mexican American or, whatever, what we would consider the Latino community, right? I feel like 95% of them voted for Kamala Harris. And I think, and to your point, a lot of folks must feel like, man, this data that's come out that said it was 50 some odd % of people that voted for Trump, it's not representing what they probably see in their area, and they probably feel like we getting punished for something that all of my friends didn't even do that, and so that's actually, I never really thought about it. I never really thought about it like that. That's a real, because because one of the things that I think you might have even said this to me, Notorious, back in the day, was a lot of that data was brought in from Florida and a state where the demographics are very different. But again, when we talk about it to all. Like we talk about it, like Kelly's Afro-Latina. She gets kind of punished for it too, in her demographic, which probably voted very differently than white Latinos. It's a really good point.
Exactly. And even then, like there was a Latin American or a Latino, quote unquote Latino, civil rights organization that also worked with African American civil rights organization, where they did their own polling on the things, and they broke it down into different ethnic groups. And it still didn't encompass every ethnic group within the Latino diaspora, but they broke it down into ethnic groups. And the two groups that actually voted over 50% for Trump were Venezuelans and Cubans. Every other ethnic group were 60% or higher, which is the average across the board. If you look at prior elections, is around 60-65%. I think the highest that anybody's ever voted in the Latino community, the highest our percentages were like 71%, and that was during Obama's second administration. So when you break it down in that way, you're going to see that even within the different ethnic groups, the two ethnic groups that voted, and I don't even want to generalize them, because that comes with a nuanced history too, because they've been conditioned by the United States to say that they were living in communist countries. So then they targeted Cuban and Venezuelan communities and said, see, you don't want to be like the country you fled. You don't want to be in another communist country. You don't want to be in a socialist country. Therefore, we as Republicans are better for you, because otherwise you're going to end up in the same place that you guys were in Cuba and Venezuela.
So Notorious, that's exactly where my story was going with the gentleman that I work with. So he's, like I said, a Cuban immigrant. His parents are naturalized Cuban immigrant citizens. So when I asked him, I said, why are you voting for Trump? Why would your family, rather not him, he can't vote, but why would your family vote for Trump, even though it puts your citizenship at risk? And through conversation, we made a discovery that they don't, because of media and whatever's pushed out to these communities, they don't know the fundamental differences in language between communism and socialism. They don't know the difference. They think it's one and the same. Those two things have different definitions. They have two different contexts. When I made the very bold announcement during this debate, hey, do you understand that there's a very distinct difference between communism and socialism? He said, no, there's not. It's the same thing. And so if the rhetoric, is socialism is the same thing as communism, and communism is bad, look what it did to your country, then obviously they're going to vote for who they think is anti-communism. And that's usually the rhetoric, espoused by the Republican Party. And so that's what they thought they were doing. They thought they were voting anti-communism. The problem then becomes, and I tried to explain to him, I'm like, listen, the roads you drive on, the schools you go to, even the medical program that we all chip in for medical and we get medical. That's socialist. All of it. It's socialist. The difference between communism and socialism is that in communism, you can't own real property, right? The property belongs to the state. But in socialism, you can own your own real property, right? Like you can have businesses, you can have assets, you can have all the things, except you're going to pour your money into a pot. It's literally what taxes are, right? Taxes pay for roads, they pay for doctors, they pay for hospitals, they pay for policemen and firemen. That's all socialist, but they've been taught that socialism equals communism equals bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're lacking in that education. And then
real quick, Petty, because I don't know if Notorious was finished with her.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. She was touching on all the things I was going to, and I got excited.
No, you're good. You're good. Let me let Notorious finish, and then I want to keep the discussion going. No, you're good. Go ahead.
I'll also add this: when it came to voting, there's a lot of us, including myself, who did not vote. And that's because when you break down what both political parties are doing to my community as a whole, I didn't want to vote for either side. I'm not going to reward them with my vote just because they're the lesser of two evils, even though the lesser of two evils is still going to cause harm to my community. So also coming from an indigenous perspective, I'm not going to keep colonizers in power. And I think, in my opinion, people of color who are in office, in government, are just tokens. They never had real power. We saw that with Obama, what happened with him. He never actually had real power as being the leader of the free world because all the white Democrats and Republicans made sure that he didn't get the things that he wanted to get accomplished. They got their agendas pushed through, but they didn't get what they wanted. So they will always still reduce power amongst people of color in government positions. They will still reduce our power, which is why they keep it very minimum to the amount of black and brown people that are in Congress, that are in politics. They keep it at a minimum because they're easier to control us at a minimum, and they still maintain that type of power. So while people may not agree with me, or I could have a discussion later on and not on your panel about voting, not voting, and those things like that, that's another perspective that a lot of people don't look into, as far as if people are looking and being honest about how they're voting and who they're voting for. Is both candidates going to be good for my people, or are both candidates harmful for my people? And some people just decided there was a lot within the quote unquote brown, Latino, Hispanic community that also did not vote because they didn't want to have to deal with the same issues we've been dealing with from both parties when it came to immigration, which was centered in these elections, right? And so with immigration and migrants and everything, we've been fighting these battles for decades. And we've been fighting these battles with Democrats and with Republicans. So a lot of people are just fed up with rewarding people our votes, because that's what it is. They need to earn our votes, and they're not earning them. And so that's another part of that layered part of the voting block that is never really discussed as well. So I just wanted to add that in there.
No, absolutely. And I know, Kelly, you want to come in. Let me do this. Good morning, Gold Seal. Good morning, everybody that's coming in. I do want to touch on that, BGP, because I think it's important, and not that we need to have a full discussion on voting. And I respect what you're saying. You probably want to have that discussion in a way where you're hosting and, you can control it a little bit more. So I totally respect that. Right. But at the same time, I think it's a piece of this, because I think, at least historically in the Black community, voting has been seen as something that's almost a rite of passage from the standpoint of how many Black people suffered historically so that we even have the opportunity to vote. And so I think when we hear that, that to me is a disconnect. Now, it doesn't, there's a lot of Black people that don't vote, okay? I'm not trying to say that that's the case. But I do think at least when I hear that, I'm like, ooh, okay, but I want to understand, that more. Let me go to Kelly, and then Edom, I'm gonna let you go. So Edom, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to say one more thing. And I want to pull somebody else up. But Kelly, I know you wanted to probably respond to that point specifically. Go ahead.
Of course, Smitty. As an immigrant who understands the history of the country, it's hard for me to hear people who was born here and has the right to vote that they don't vote. And I'm not coming at Miss Notorious. I respect her and her points of view, but this is my perspective on things. As an immigrant, even immigrants, we are fighting for a right to vote. We want to become citizens because we want to fully participate within the system, within and even though I understand that, the two-party system is BS and et cetera, as an immigrant, I understand the fight of Black and Indigenous people in this country for rights. I will never disrespect the history and the people who came before me to the fight for me as an immigrant to have rights. And when it comes to voting, it's not about rewarding, it's about harm reduction. And not voting is a way to say, you know what, I really don't care. Because unfortunately, the people who say that don't support the administration right now, not voting helped them win. So it's like, okay. And harm reduction is something real, because if the Black womanhood have won, this kind of brutality towards Latinos will not be happening. And
real quick, BGP. Let me just make sure Kelly was finished, and then I'm coming back to you. Of course, you know my rules, right? I'm coming right back to you. Let me just make sure Kelly was finished. Were you finished, Kelly?
Yes, pretty much that's it. But like I said, it's confusing to me. But I respect the opinion. But like I said, harm reduction is something real, and even if I can understand that, it's if anybody was better, Iraq was better than this administration. I'm sorry, but
right.
And 300,000 Black women without jobs. That's all I'm saying.
So absolutely. Let me go back to BGP. Go ahead, BGP. I definitely want to hear your perspective. Go ahead.
I'm a veteran. I sacrifice for people to have their rights, their constitutional rights. I'm not lost on what my ancestors, because my ancestors also didn't have the right to vote till a certain period of time. So I'm not lost on that. However, when we start decolonizing and breaking down what is actually happening and how this government functions, this government has never functioned under an actual true democracy. This government has always perpetuated harm onto people of color in general. So when we're talking like from an indigenous perspective, we are still living under a colonizer government. This is Israel. This is where Israel got their ideas from. This is how they instituted what they did to Palestinians. This is what they've been doing to indigenous people and to Black people across the board. So when and I used to be the person who was like, vote blue no matter what, vote for the lesser of two evils, it's better than anything. And I also used to believe in harm reduction till I realized it was a myth. Harm reduction is only for the people who are pushing harm reduction for their communities. And I'll give an example. Kamala Harris, when you looked at her ad on immigration, she almost verbatim pushed the same kind of rhetoric that Republicans were pushing. Democrats were pushing the same thing. So they were going after quote unquote cartels. They were going after quote unquote the DRUGSs that were coming in. They were pushing that same rhetoric that we all know has been debunked and isn't true. They were talking about trafficking when the biggest amount of trafficking is happening within the borders. So they were pushing a lot of harmful rhetoric towards my community from the beginning. When we look at what the Biden-Harris administration did during Biden's term, they actually funded more money to ICE than what Trump did in his first term. So they increased the funding to ICE at that time. So when we're talking about harm reduction, how is that harm reduction to my community? It's not. It's the same thing. The only difference is right now it's in your face, whereas before it was being covered up and not looked at. People don't realize that even during the Obama administration, that the reason why he had so many deportations in history was because people were coming across the border. There was coercion happening, and they were having them sign paperwork saying, "Hey, if you sign this paperwork and leave, we won't keep you detained. Otherwise, you're going to be in here for months or even longer than months. So sign this paperwork." So people were literally coming in, signing paperwork and going back out, which increased his numbers on why people were deporting. That's unconstitutional. That's coercion. So these things are happening across the board. Even if we look at Bill Clinton, if we want to talk about harm reduction, Bill Clinton increased the amount by tenfold, the amount of Black and brown people being incarcerated because of the 99 crime bill. We tend to not look at Democrats and we say, oh yeah, they're less harmful, but overall, generationally, they're just as harmful. They just do it more covertly in a way that we don't see the effects immediately. We see it over time, over a decade, over 2 decades. We see how their policies are extremely harmful while they sit there and pander to get our votes, but never really do anything about it. So from that indigenous perspective, if I'm sitting here and I'm voting for people who are colonizers, I'm not going to keep them in and keep a colonizer government in the system. I'm an abolitionist. I am not a Democrat. I am not a liberal. I am not even a leftist in that sense. I am an abolitionist. I and a lot of indigenous people want to see the entire government gone, and it can't be gone if we're still participating in keeping colonizers in power. And like I said before, even if we're inserting our own people into these positions, they don't have the power that most people think they do. Their power is limited because the majority of people in power are still white men who make sure they limit the power that POC, senators, congressmen, and so forth, mayors, even governors have, because they always override it with their white supremacy power. And so I am the type of person that I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I'm going to do harm reduction, vote in harm reduction when these people haven't earned my vote. A lot of the times we sit there and say, they got to earn our vote, but they never earn our vote. So we're willingly giving up our vote to people who aren't actually helping us, who aren't actually doing harm reduction, who are doing more covert things that are harmful over the long run versus in the short period impact. So while we may not have seen under Kamala, if she would have won, that we wouldn't have seen people being kidnapped off the streets like that they are doing. People have been kidnapped off the streets. I've seen it myself. I've seen people being harassed. I've seen them go into jobs. I've seen them under Democratic administrations go into jobs, go into the fields, and literally round people up. This wasn't something new. This is not new that Trump is doing. It's just more in your face because people are seeing it now and people are recording it now. So I think that's where that comes into play. But again, I'm always willing to have the conversation. I'm not asking people to sit here and, agree with me, but I am actually asking people to actually sit back and think about what I'm saying and then look at it from that perspective and at least, digest it and kind of understand that perspective more than anything.
Smitty, may I address Ms. Notorious, if that's okay?
Oh, give me 1 second, Patty, just because I promised E-Dub some time, and I want to go to T-Sizzle. But Patty, I'll work you in. By the way, we got about another 30 minutes or so. I think this is really important, and I think we're having a respectful discussion about this, so this is good. However, I do know that a lot of folks are also uncomfortable with what's being said. But again, I think we need to push this a little bit to kind of discuss this out. But E-Dub, since I'm going to let you go, and if we can keep comments to about a minute and a half, that way we can get some more perspectives up. Go ahead, E-Dub. Final comment.
Yeah, this is a great conversation, man. And every time people talk on this panel, I learn a lot more every time, and I do really appreciate it, ladies. You guys have been great. Well, just real quick, the 94 crime bill was written. Just real quick on that is because the black community had a lot of issues that were going on, and we lost control of our community, and we had to do something. So the Black Caucus got involved to do that. I understand the implementation of it was awful, but something had to be done in the black community because it was getting too wild at one point in time. The sea epidemic really messed our communities up. So I hope you would look into more of that angle for one. But then the other thing too, somebody said something about Venezuela. They said most of the people that voted for Trump from the Latin, if you want to say, were Venezuelan. When Hugo Chavez was elected president of Venezuela back in 2000, I think it was in 1998, something like that, he was the first person of indigenous features, meaning darker tones, to be elected president of that country. So it's interesting how a lot of people from Venezuela are they're lighter skin tone Latin people. They look more Spanish, or whatever you want to say too, and they believe they're closer to Caucasian than they were anything else. The thing that's very interesting about Latin people that are going to want to be next to white proximity, there's a difference between European and American white proximity and Latin proximity. Is that when you walk out of the room, they still think lesser of you, white people do. I grew up around them. I had my own little type of awakening because I lived in South Phoenix, mostly around black and Latino people. And then on purpose, my parents moved us to a more rich, more Caucasian white area. And even though I was accepted and people liked me and we were all friends, from conversations around my white friends, right, I begin to understand and learn that proximity to whiteness doesn't mean they're going to accept you or they're not going to talk bad about you when the time does come. I was in Mexico one time. I got drunk and I fell asleep on one of my friends. We were on spring break. I fell asleep in the wrong bed and I was passed out. And my wife was next to me at my girlfriend at the time. And these guys were like, this N-word fell asleep in my bed. I can't believe this guy fell asleep in my bed. They kept calling me the N-word. And these are supposed to be my friends, right? And then my wife woke me up the next morning. She's like, Eric, did you hear what's going on? And I'm like, no, I was kind of drunk. I passed out. She's like, they were dropping the N-bomb on you like crazy. And my wife, I said my wife was Mexican. So that was my awakening to saying, hey, you know what? Is that because someone's nice to you to your face doesn't mean does not mean that you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. Yeah. And I've seen the way that white people, my white friends at the time, talked about Latin people. It was ugly and it was awful, but I felt because I'm the accepted black guy, it doesn't really bother me too much, right? I think a lot of Latins that want to have that proximity to whiteness need to understand is that they think awful of you too, you just don't know it. I found out through a horrible way. Right, so I just wanted to land on that, and I'll go ahead and drop down.
All right, hey, no, thank you for coming up. I think it's your first time up on the panel. Appreciate you for the absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day, guys.
Of course. All right, let's do this. Let me go T Sizzle, then I'm gonna go Petty, and then I'm gonna go. Actually, hold on. Before T Sizzle and Petty, let me go to Ann because Ann's got one thing quickly that she wants to say, and then we'll go T Sizzle and then Petty. Go ahead, fam.
Thanks for having me up. I don't have much of a voice, so I'm not going to say a whole lot.
I know why. Go ahead, fam. Go ahead. I couldn't resist.
Okay, I'm just going to say that it is incredibly, incredibly harmful and disingenuous for Notorious to get on this panel, tell us that she served in this government's army, proclaim her indigeneity, and then say that harm reduction doesn't work when this government, whatever happens in this country under this government or whatever government, affects the global South disproportionately. It is incredibly disingenuous for her to sit up here and say these types of things and not understand that not voting is giving away your power, what your ancestors fought for, what is happening over there in our countries, because I am an immigrant. I'm a Haitian immigrant. Every decision that is made here by this government affects my homeland. I lost my mother to the violence in Haiti. You know how the violence in Haiti starts? From what is made at tables in conference rooms in this country. So when you sit up here and you want to tell us that you're both indigenous and you care about the indigenous community here and that the indigenous community here is colonized, but then you forget about the colonized communities abroad, what are you doing? Anyway, you can drop me because I'm pissed off.
Okay.
Okay, I'll
All
answer
right.
the
Thank you.
question
Yeah,
because
go ahead. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
think when you say I'm being disingenuous, I think it's actually the opposite in that, because how many people have actually talked to indigenous communities that are tribal and have actually asked them what they want to happen to this country? How many times have indigenous peoples been left out of those conversations of what should happen to this country? If people are claiming to be pro-Palestinian and want land back for Palestinians, but aren't land back for indigenous people and still support a colonizer government, I think that's what's more disingenuous in my opinion. So if we're going to talk about what has happened in the global South, it's not just Republicans that have harmed the global South. It's also Democrats that have harmed the global South. They have been very much. If we want to talk about all of the Democrats that have come in, we could look at Operation Fast and Furious and how cartels got weapons that they didn't have before. That was through a Democratic Party. We can look at how they funded and supported Israel. We can look at that and say, oh, but we're going to still support them because they're the lesser of two evils when they're literally funding G-sides. So I'm not, as someone who has fought for people's constitutional rights and had to decolonize and understand what the Constitution does and how it does not actually protect us in the way people believe it is, that it's actually a delusion that we're all living under, then cool. You can have your opinion on me and say I'm harmful, but what's even more harmful is when people don't include indigenous people in the conversations of what should happen to our actual homelands that we've been in for over 30, 40, 50,000 years. And so when we're talking about keeping a colonizer government in power instead of dismantling said colonizer government, all you're doing is you're keeping the cycles of oppression continuing to happen because Democrats are no better. And until people recognize that Democrats are no better and that they're not actually here to help you, they're actually here to hold power, even Democratic socialists like AOC or Mandami or Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders 6 months ago said he was okay with Trump cracking down on the border because he thought he was doing a good job of keeping DRUG's ass out of the country. When we know for a fact that that's not how it works. So when people don't want to take accountability, because in my opinion, I think it's people don't want to take accountability for the people who they voted for who are causing harm, because they're causing quote unquote less harm, which is why I say harm reduction isn't real, because you're not reducing harm to the point of freedom. You're not reducing harm to the point of equality or equity. You're reducing harm to get a little bit of the crumbs back, and it stilts your starvation for freedom for a little bit, and then we end up back in the same cycles. If we actually look at history and what they have done and how they have done it, someone said that FDR was a socialist. He was not. Because the GI Bill, guess who that was for? Only white people, not black and brown people. When it came to unions, guess what? Guess who was not considered a union? The migrants. They were not considered unions. So there was things that I think when we overall look at what Democrats do and Republicans do, it's more harmful to keep a colonizer government in power who is harmful all over the world, as somebody who has been deployed and see the lies that they say to the American people when we're seeing something totally different, boots on the ground in these other countries. This is why you have more vets speaking out and more vets saying this is a problem from both sides. It's not a problem from just one side. Democrats are still white supremacists. They're still racists. They are not sitting here thinking of you or me or anybody of color or any other marginalized group of people as someone that they're going to help in the long run. They're going to keep us at a level where we don't have dissent, where we don't overthrow them, where we don't want something different. They're going to keep us comfortable in oppression.
Notorious, I think, and I don't want to attack you. I think a lot of people have had a lot to say about your very, bold comment. But I do want to say, and I'll try to make it extraordinarily brief, that your lack of participation is participation, whether you believe it is or isn't. I think also, you know, when we're trying to heal and actually reinforce the bond between Black and Brown people, we have to be conscious of the fact that Black people fought for the right to vote and still participate in the system. I think there was a young lady who was here earlier, very eloquent, and she eloquently said that, you know, anti-Black sentiment is a problem for the entire like global system, right? And until we resolve anti-Black sentiment, we can't overcome anything else that affects any other community. And so I think it diminishes all the hard work that Black men and women have done, marching and protesting and calling their, you know, their government representatives to try to, invoke change. So I do believe that risk reduction is a thing, and I understand that things were done more covertly under the democratic regime. However, lack of participation is participation. I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you do, Smitty. I'm going to jump down so other people can talk.
Absolutely.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
real quick, BG.
Okay.
Real quick, BGP fam. Like, I do kind of want to get up to some people, but I'm gonna let you interject because I know they're coming up to address you. It's just I don't have much time,
okay.
and so that's why. Or else I would let you respond. I just don't have that much time.
Sure. I'll just say that it wasn't just Black people that fought for the right to vote. It wasn't just Black people that were out there fighting. My ancestors did the same thing. Indigenous people, people who are considered part of the Latino diaspora. Everybody was fighting for the right to vote because we did believe at the time that voting would make a change. It's not because the system is fully rigged. They continuously gerrymander our votes. They continuously put voter suppression laws in place. And so our votes don't count like we have been led to believe that they count. If they did, we wouldn't have gerrymandering. We wouldn't have voter suppression. We wouldn't have the things that are happening that says our votes actually do count. So yeah, if you want to say that I'm not voting is still participating, sure. I want the whole system gone. I want it dismantled. I want my people to have their lands back. And I think that's where this conversation is getting lost, is because while we're sitting here talking about anti-Blackness, we're forgetting that anti-Indigenous exists. And that's the whole purpose of colonization, because white supremacy is inherently anti-Indigenous globally. It's anti-Indigenous in Africa, not just anti-Black. It's anti-Indigenous in Africa. It's anti-Indigenous in certain parts of Asia. It's anti-Indigenous in Australia. It's anti-Indigenous in New Zealand, and it's anti-Indigenous in the Americas. Then after that, then they racialize us into all of these different categories: Black, Native American, Asian, all of those things. So when we're talking about keeping colonizers in government and saying, not voting is part of the system, is letting the system be, it's actually part of dismantling the system.
Okay.
It is.
Thank you. So real quick, y'all. Oh, give me a second, brother. Real quick. Let me just set the order because I promised T-Sizzle time, and then I want to go T-Sizzle, Meech, and Free. And I know, Kelly, I know you want to jump in, but just because I don't have that much time left, and I know people are very passionate about this piece of it, I want to try to get as many people to get their perspective in as possible. But I am going to ask, okay, very seriously, that y'all make your comments a little bit quicker. Okay, please, everybody, make them a little bit quicker so we can get more people. T-Sizzle, go ahead. Welcome.
Hey, I mean, I thought this was her panel. As much time as you let her talk. I mean, I'm a Black male in LA. I don't know what this notorious lady talking about. Whenever you talk about brown people of color, that don't include us. These people are racist. I don't know how else to say it, man. I'm on the streets, and whenever people talk about they were helping us vote, the Latinos could drink out the white water fountain. This is documented. They could go into the Beverly Hills Hotel. Always remember, the #1 show in America had a Latino man yelling at a white woman. It was called I Love Lucy. Don't even put yourselves in our group. What are you talking about? But here, let me get back to the racism and why we can't unify. They are racist in the jobs. Smitty, I'm at a loss for words. Construction, electrician, medical. They outright discriminate against us. You look at all the big discrimination lawsuits. It's not white people who are doing that to us. It's Latinos. This is documented. The Latino gangs randomly are going after what we call square black guys like me, like you, dudes who not even in nothing. They are targeting us. Man, this is crazy. Oh, and to think of, because I'm in my 40s. In the 80s, we was with them. We 70s, we was with them. And then all of a sudden, soon as they get numbers, they turn their back on us. Unity, it's them. It's not us. All this POC. Nah, they only say that when it's beneficial for them.
Okay.
Obama passed it. Okay, go ahead. I can keep going on and on.
Yeah, I got
don't know
you.
what this notorious lady talking about.
Okay. No, I got you. Let me go real quick. I know typically Notorious I would let you respond to every comment. I just don't have time. So let me do this. Let me go Meech, Free, and then Notorious, I'll come to you. And then you can take a little bit more time because I'm letting other people come in. But again, if we can keep comments to about a minute and a half a person, that way we probably get another 5 or 10 perspectives. Go ahead, brother Meech. Good to see you, man, by the way.
Good to see you, brother. God bless, man.
Likewise, man.
I was gonna say, I'll stick and move real quick because, like, whenever I hear people pushing voter abstention and then trying to attach it to some other social movement, like, it's not just Latino people, it's not just some of our indigenous brothers. Dr. Umar Johnson does the same thing, pushes voter abstention, and so does Tariq Nasheed. At polar opposite ideologies, but they still sneak in these right-wing talking points and try to make it sound woke and conscious and like they're part of the left. No, the fuck you're not. Right? So, like, the leftist to alt-right pipeline has to be studied, and we have to break it down, because this idea that you're somehow indirectly dismantling the system by sitting at home and not voting is preposterous. Right? If you want to dismantle the system, dismantle the system. Black and brown people fought in the Battle of Puebla together. Black and brown people fought to free Mexico, right? Vicente Guerrero, like that's nothing new. Like, we've had revolts. Black people have had revolts. Indigenous people have had revolts, right? If you're gonna revolt. That has nothing to do with voting. Voting is what we're doing in the meantime until the revolt happens. When the revolt starts, call us. We've been there, done that. Our Haitian brothers and sisters have done that. The Gullah and the Geechee people down in the Georgia, Florida region, we've been there. Our people been Maroons. Our people been fighting the colonizer. Matter of fact, the black men from the Confederate South actually went to the Union Army and negotiated the abolition of slavery and our freedom on our own terms. We had agency, right? Like, Frederick Douglass existed, a runaway slave 3 times. Benjamin Banneker existed. The Sons of Africa movement existed, right? We had black people fighting on every land for freedom. I find it very disingenuous and very disrespectful to aim any type of conversation like that at black people that have fought across different nations and cultures and are still marginalized within Latino culture, because they act like they don't have black people who feel safer around black Americans than they do around their Latino brothers and sisters, right? Who question them about why they speak in Spanish. The problem they have with black people didn't start in the United States, right? I'm gonna land my plane right there, but, like, with voting, we are free because of the 13th, the 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 14th Amendment established citizenship for people that are not a white man, which in 1790 was limited to white men. The 14th Amendment is the foundation of rights for immigrants in this country. Latino people are dependent on that 14th Amendment, which is part of the reason they're dismantling right now, is to target black and brown people together. Like, we're not the op. But if we have to explain that, we might be wasting our time here, because I got plenty of Latino brothers and sisters, Native American brothers and sisters. They don't talk this bullshit. So I'm not going to let this be attached to an identity. I think this is just, like, we have people like this in the black community that are white cultured, especially military peeps, right? That will try to play identity politics with it when, in fact, they're attaching themselves to the colonizer ideologically. I'm going to land there.
All right. Let me go. So, again, Free, 1 minute and a half, and then Notorious, I give you 2 minutes because, again, you got multiple comments, so I'm going to respect that. Go ahead, Free. Welcome to the panel. First time, by the way.
Hey, brother. Before I begin anything, I just have 2 questions for Tiza and Notorious, and it's a closed-ended question, so it's just a yes or no, and then you can rebuttal me afterwards. What do you know about the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party? Do you know who the Mississippi Democratic Party is? The Mississippi Freedom... That's fucking fucking why you shouldn't be talking on this shit right here.
I'm in LA. I'm living this shit.
Huh?
Well,
So let's do it.
He said something. He said something.
He said I'm in LA, I'm living this. But let me but go ahead, Free, make your point, and then I'm gonna let Notorious finish.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm not even gonna come at her, period. I'm gonna just come at all these idiots that want to talk about the history of black people and all this shit. Look, I'm indigenous and black, and I'm a military veteran, okay? So all that shit that was said a moment ago don't mean shit to me if you don't even know true history. She is right that Latinos did help us. But at the same time, Mita's right. Latinos do pass as white sometimes, and then there's Afro-Latinos who fight with themselves on if they are black or if they are Latino. They don't want to claim it sometimes. In addition to that, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party was Fannie Lou Hamer. She's the one who got your ass to vote. She's the one who stood there on the same night that Lyndon B. Johnson was not going to allow any of us motherfuckers to vote and had him come off the radio and say, you know what? I better stop before I put my foot in my mouth so fast that I get impeached. She's the one who stood over the shoulder of Lyndon B. Johnson with Martin Luther King right by her side saying, you know what? You are going to give us the right to vote and we're going to stand right fucking here while you do it. I don't want to hear this shit about how we have these united things if you don't even know the full history. You dissecting history in this way is some biased shit. And they have to gerrymander. It seems like people also don't know, and this is not the only panel, SoCal, that they don't know the point of gerrymandering. They don't know the history of gerrymandering. They don't know the history of black people voting very well either, and that we had to do a literacy test just to be able to vote prior to the 65th. They don't know that. And the fact is that if it was not our ability to be able to vote and our ability to infiltrate the Democratic Party, that is the point of it. I can put a picture up right now to show you what the Democratic Party looks like next to the Republican Party. If we don't, as citizens, infiltrate the party and run for the positions that we want to run from, that we want our voices heard, then this is what's gonna fucking happen. And all this sacrifice for not accepting good and great because you want fucking perfect is what's gonna put us back in fucking chains. Because that's why we are where we are right now. And if you didn't vote, you are guilty of what's happening to your people.
Let me come in, Free. No, thank you for that. Let me let Notorious finish up with the response, and then we'll see if we got time for a final comment. I hate stopping the live here. I think this is a very good discussion, but I gotta go. I gotta do what I gotta do. So, Notorious, take the time that you need to respond. Go ahead.
So one thing is, I won't be emotionally manipulated into voting. That's number one. Number two, brown people had to take literacy tests, and they still did. And that was part of the voter suppression laws that were being passed and being done in places like Texas and Florida and all those other places where voter suppression laws were enacted during this election as well. So this is not something new, and this is not something that just happened to black people, which is why I'm saying when you want to talk about understanding black history, I think understanding brown history as well, and all the things like the guy at T Zizzle said, Mexicans were allowed to drink from white water fountains. No, they didn't. No, they weren't at all.
Documented.
And there is also, hold on, I'm not done. I was very polite and listened to everybody. Also, on top of that, when we're talking about Jim Crow laws that happened in the Southwest, that's something that's not talked about a lot. Also, Latino, again, is not a race. White Latinos actually do exist, and they are actually white people who are of Spanish descent. That is a thing. So, again, the generalizations is part of it. Two, when we're talking about voting and when we're saying it's the meantime, it's in the meantime, cool. It's in the meantime. But if we're talking about indigenous people here in the Americas, that's 500 years here in the Americas that we've been waiting for voting to help us. It's not helping us. It's not helped us. We still don't have our lands back, and we're still living under a colonizer government. We still don't have any autonomy like people think we do. So we're not looking at this from an indigenous perspective. Again, I'll ask the question, how many tribal leaders have any of you guys spoken to about what should happen to indigenous lands? How many people have sat down with indigenous tribal leaders and said, hey, this is what we see for the future. What do you guys think? That doesn't happen. And the reason why it doesn't happen, and when people sit there and say, oh, my friends, my Native friends, my Latino friends, that's tokenization. Because again, we're not a one homogenized group. We're not a monolith. And there are a lot of people who are Native who literally push for abolitionism. I'm not a leftist. I don't want to keep the same system in play. A vote for anybody in this system is a vote for capitalism, and it's a vote for colonization. No matter how you want to break it down, you're still voting for people who are still colonizing indigenous lands. People want to say that's not how you break and dismantle the system. Absolutely. When you stop participating in the systems, in all of the systems, I don't pay taxes either. Am I going to get come down on for not paying taxes? It's not just not my vote. It's also not paying my taxes. It's also not participating in as much of the system that I should not participate in that doesn't allow me to survive. I work because I still have to pay bills. Otherwise, my family's house goes away. However, if I didn't have to work, if I can go back to the ways, no one's saying this is going to be perfect. No one's saying it's going to be easy, and it's going to take years for that to happen. But we can't sit here and claim that you're for Palestinians and you're for people in Africa, indigenous people in Africa getting their lands back, while we sit here and still participate in the same system that colonizers here in the United States keep us under control while they still control everywhere else in the world. So we are all not only doing harm to ourselves here, we are also doing harm globally by keeping these people in power and keeping the system in power.
That's a lot. All right, so real quick, y'all. I know y'all want to rebut.
How much longer do we all have to wait for the system to change when all it's giving us is crumbs? That's all it's giving us.
Okay, let's do this, y'all. Again, normally, if I didn't have to go, I would let this continue. Kelly, you get the final word. Listen, if all five of y'all want to come back, we can do this tomorrow.
Of course. Oh, so
I'll be back.
So if y'all want to come back, we can do this again tomorrow. I think it'd be good.
So I gotta drop because I'm about to go live too. So I'm just like,
okay. No, you good. Go ahead, drop. No, you good. Okay, but let's let Kelly get the final word, and then I do got to go. They already called me.
I have to drop too, but I'll just say this.
Okay.
Not voting is also a right.
Okay.
It's also a right not to vote as well. So y'all have a good day.
No, thank you, BGP. Thank you for coming up. Go ahead, Kelly. Get the final word in. Go ahead.
Of course, Midi. Thank you. So we always speak about the system like the system is just a thing. The system is literally made of people. So in order to change the system, we need to change the people within the system. It is when we talk about incarceration and the rates of, Black and brown people incarcerated, it's because you have a racist judge. If the judge is not racist, you're going to get a fair, quote unquote. And it's just one of the things. Like Free to Be Me said, it's so important. We need to change the people within the systems. Not voting is keep the people who are oppressing us in power. We need to vote for the people who are willing to change the system. And that's how we change the system.
Are Latinos racist?
Abolition, senor.
Are Latinos racist? Before we leave, are Latinos racist against Black people? Yes or no?
Hold on, brother. Let's let her finish.
Y'all going all around.
Hold on, brother. Let's let her finish.
Sir, I understand he's very emotional. That's okay. So like I was saying, we need to change the people within the system. Like I said, not to come for BG, the woman, but we're going to abolish the system. But then what? What are we going to put in place? And how long is going to take us to make that change? And I understand that. But meanwhile, we're just gonna hand the whole country and the whole system to the white supremacist? Is that what we're gonna do by not voting, by not participating, by not organizing? I'm not willing to just hand out the future of my children to this white supremacist system by not participating. And I'm new here.
Okay.
So thank you so much for getting me pray.
So y'all, I gotta run.
I love you, Smitty.
Yeah, I gotta run. Love you guys. And y'all have a great day. BGP and T Sizzle, y'all welcome to have y'all perspectives back up on the panel too. Come back tomorrow, y'all. Antifa, love you, fam. Oya, love you, fam. Sajda, love you, fam. Sarah, love you. Everybody that came in India, love you. Appreciate everybody for coming in. I think this was one of the most powerful lives I've had in a minute. Thought it was very interesting. Maxie, I agree with you. So please come back to either tomorrow or Saturday. We need to keep having this discussion. It's no point to have flowers and roses and pretend like everything is okay. We got to have these uncomfortable, difficult discussions with people that are going to be part of this coalition, right? So let's and you did your thing today, okay? And so, Meech, I love you, brother. Thank you for coming up, man. Love your perspective. Love your perspective. And so hopefully we can get you back tomorrow. All right. Much love to everybody. See y'all later. Much love to everybody. See y'all later.